The Irrational Confidence Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and week number 6 is in the books. You can't ever sleep on a weekend of college football because you never know what kind of crazy upsets will ever happen, just like we have in week number 6. I'm joined by my co-host, the man who went trick-or-treating as a cowboy once, but only got Jolly Ranchers. Fresh, how you doing?
How's it doing? Great.
I've been saying that one.
That was a good one. I like that. What a wild Saturday. There were some great efforts. And I think we'll dive into that a little bit more, but there was also some chaos. And we're starting to see, and we talked about it, I think, even at the beginning of the year, where 2007 was the season of chaos. USF at one point was number 2. We had a top 5 matchup between Kansas and Missouri. I think LSU had a 2-loss year that, Georgia was a 2-loss team, didn't look very good, but they found some momentum late. It was just a chaotic season where anything could happen. And we're starting to see that play out right now. And even wins that people have had that we thought were great, are they even really good? We had ourselves doubting ourselves. What are actually good wins at this point? I don't think we even know ourselves. At the point, just keep winning football games. If we're at week 6, we still got 7 more weeks of regular season until conference championship weeks to go. I expect chaos to continue.
Yeah, it's Al Davis. Just win, baby.
Just
At
win.
the end of the day, just win your games that you have in front of you. There's nothing you can do about your schedule.
Points don't matter either. Not like in the past.
I do have some new residents. Fresh and I have created a new town, ladies and gentlemen. There is a mayor of the town already. They have Fansville. They have whatever the playoff thing is. Well, we will introduce our new town, and the mayor of that town will be announced later on the show. But we'll start off in the positive. We we're glass half full type of people here. Fresh, who impressed you the most this weekend?
First of all, Miami.
I agree with that.
But we kind of waiting like, all right, they had a big lead early in the opener versus Notre Dame, but then Notre Dame came back. And then we knew that USF was going to be mismatched after everyone had their attention. And they played in a sluggish, rainy affair to Florida, but they came out focused for Florida State. Florida State was coming off a loss, but they have tons of talent, and their defense, I was just more impressed with the Hurricane defense than it was the offense. All around, a great effort. I was also impressed with Texas Tech just handling business, standing on business. They put that thing away. I think they had first 5 possessions. They scored every single time. Against the Houston team, was undefeated on the road. They came out there, it's like, oh, we're going to do what we got to do, put points up. And then lastly, I was also impressed with Washington. And the reason why. They had been undefeated. They played tough early versus Ohio State. The game got away from them. Then they had to travel all the way across the country to Maryland. They were down early, and unlike USC, unlike Penn State, they were able to travel cross country, handle the travel aspect, rally in the second half, and survive and beat an undefeated Maryland team. I'll give credit to the Huskies. That was an impressive effort because they could have said, you know what, we had travel. It's a long trip going West Coast to East Coast. I don't care if you're going East to West, West to East. Having to refocus, get down early, battle back. That was an impressive. There's multiple efforts, but those 3 right there are big highlights for me after Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I was super impressed with how the Hurricanes played. We had multiple TVs going on last night while we were watching the Ohio State game. And I kept, Ohio State game got out of hand real quick and fast in a hurry there. But I kept looking over at that Florida State-Miami game, and just to see Miami put the boots to Florida State was very, very impressive. Fresh, I'm going to go a couple other places just so I'm not repeating exactly what you said. First, the most impressive to me, I got to throw it up for Illinois. They get the doors beat off of them, and they could have crumbled. That Indiana game could have been a turning point for their season, them completely going downhill. And then they beat USC last year. They wind up beating Purdue this weekend in remarkable fashion. To see them being very impressive on this season, so I was impressed by them. Nebraska, great job out of Nebraska, and I'm happy that they won. Yeah,
that was a very bad game. It was a battle of mids. That was not an impressive effort. That was a survival. No, that was not the greatest game.
What did we start off with though? And they're 4, and Nebraska's 4-1.
Oh,
they're 4-1.
Okay.
Yeah. Just win. And we gotta sit there. I gotta give it up for. Number one, I gotta give it up for is Cincinnati beating Iowa State. I did not expect that to happen. I didn't expect that to happen. They did an amazing job with that one. So I'm impressed with how Cincinnati was able to beat Iowa State.
Yeah, Sorsby played real well. I'll give him credit. I know
He did.
Iowa State's win. You're all kind of, why was Iowa State the dog and Cincinnati favored? And hey, Cincinnati proved us all wrong. But they worked themselves through the weeds and have played pretty well.
And I'll be the last one I'll have to say is this, Fresh. You know, we've talked about with quarterbacks here. 60% is like the break-even mark for us for completion percentage. 70% in college football is the elite level, like you are a legit NFL quarterback prospect. Julian Sayin, after 5 games on the season, has crossed the 80% completion mark on the season. Say what you will against anything else they have. The fact that he has completed over 80% of his passes already, and then 13 touchdowns, has thrown 3 picks. I think with all the changeover that people could have had with new quarterbacks taking over and stuff like that, granted, he has a slew of weapons that I think most quarterbacks would be very happy with. But again, great job out of him and play the games that are in front of you.
Yeah, he did a great job. I mean, he's really matured in the offense. I think they've done a good job getting Brian Hartline, Ryan Day, giving him talent. He has talent around him, but they've given him throws where he can make them and not have to be stressed. And you allow the confidence to build. And I think quarterbacks they're more mental. If they start seeing, like we saw Carson back last year, where receivers drop balls or protection's not the greatest, you start forcing stuff because you start getting in your head. This year, protection at Miami's been better, and receivers are catching passes, whether they're easier routes or whatnot. You see a confidence boost. You start seeing 1 completion become 2, and the confidence sort of cascades. And that's how you breed good quarterback play. And I think you're starting to see it from Sam. He's early. It's a young quarterback. You give him successful moments to make him feel like he's in control, and you don't put him in a stressful situation.
All right. Yeah. All right, Fresh. Let's go to our step that, because there's a lot of crazy that went on there. What was that just, I don't know if I want to say jaw dropper or just been like, I can't believe that happened this weekend.
Puts elephant in the room is Penn State.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Fraudville. Fraudville is our town, and they are now a concrete resident. But
yep.
James Franklin's like, we had some injuries, and we had to travel to California. Well, first of all, before we get into this, Big Ten, I don't want to hear about travel because you guys you welcomed USC, UCLA, Cal, and Washington, and Oregon into the league.
Oregon.
We knew travel was going to be a problem. That shouldn't be an issue. Number 2, UCLA is god awful. They were the worst program in FBS Power 4. And I don't care what you took. You have 2 great running backs. We care about Drew Lock. You could have come and just run the football. You gave up 260 plus yards rushing to UCLA, 100 plus, well over 100 plus to Nico himself, and 42 points. That raised a lack of focus. You played toe to toe with Oregon, which now is like, all right, well, we're going to have to prove themselves because that overtime win in Happy Valley, you're like, was that a good win or was it just a hangover from Penn State? Penn State, you don't have a powerful win. You have 2 slappies and 2 losses. Yeah, you have Indiana and Ohio State the rest of your schedule, but the next 2 weeks versus Northwestern and Iowa, you better come in and show up because right now I don't think you're a playoff team. And I'm not ranking you in my top 25 because you have nothing to actually bear it on. It was just a pathetic performance, but it's seeing the same things we've seen from James Franklin with top 10 teams we saw on Saturday. Not prepared, lazy effort, the communication across the board, no killer instinct, no drive, no attack mode. Drew Lock playing scared at the quarterback position. There's just a lot of issues that have bubbled up. I think even really the second half versus Notre Dame in the playoff last year should have been the awakening for multiple people. And I think ourselves included because they had a big lead in that first half and they put their foot off the gas and let Notre Dame come back. And it should have been an Ohio State, Penn State national championship. And they dropped the ball. And it's kind of spiraled since then. Like, oh, we're Penn State. We'll be ranked in the top 10. We're a great team. Even a couple of years ago, we talked about Penn State stinks when they have expectations. And now the expectations were even lofty. We're talking not just a top 10 team before. We're coming to the season and talk about potential winning a national championship. You lose to UCLA. The stat is out there for everybody, but they're the first top 10 team in the AP era since 1985 to lose to an 0-14. I'm 40 years old. I turned 40 on October 7th. This is October 5th. My entire life, this is basically the first time it's ever happened. Even if you put 60 up on Northwestern, it's not going to make me feel any more impressed or better about my decision. Even if you put 60 in Iowa, I'm not going to feel like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe that's a hiccup. you've got to go out and beat Indiana and Ohio State for me to have any faith that you're even a top 25 team. It's a mess there. And it's finally starting to bubble to the surface where you think you could rest on your laurels. Going back to winning, the Nebraska game aside, that was a little messy, but someone had to win. Penn State, you've got to beat everybody by 40 points outside of Indiana, and Ohio State's going to win those games to have them even feel like you're even a top 25 team. And this might be a program shaker. I don't think James Franklin's going to get fired because we talked about prior to the record. It's just too expensive, and Penn State's not going to fork over the cash.
No, they're not.
But this is something's got to change across the board.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So now what you're going to want to do, hit the rewind button. And every time Fresh says Penn State, we're going to replace Penn State with the word Texas.
Bingo.
Yep. So our second member of Fraudville. Fraudville is brought to you by the Irrational Confidence Podcast. And we're trademarking it here because we are the founders of Fraudville here. Hey, Penn State, you moved in down the street. You bought a nice little townhouse right there on Main Street of Fraudville. Texas is the next door neighbor of Fraudville. What they did, Fresh, listen, I get it. We've talked about, like, Florida's offense is completely inept, but their defense had some solid players on it too. Although I do have another person who may be packing up a moving truck to Fraudville, but they didn't play this week. We'll talk about that later on it. But Florida's offense was god awful this year. I mean, they've been abysmal all year long. And for Texas defense, which we thought was really, really good, especially Colin Simmons coming in there, they had a lot of talent. Looked like they had a lot of NFL level talent. And they give up 29. I get it. You're on the road against the Gators. They give up 29. And then on top of that, you struggle to move the ball all day long. Arch can't read defenses at all. It seems like he's one of those guys who just got through high school on his physical gifts. And again, I'm going to say, kid is physically talented to play D1 football. But then when you get to that level and you have to make the right reads, you have to understand what a defense is trying to do to you. He's not doing it. He's not doing it. And he can't rely on his physical talents. Take out Arch's cornerback scrambles and zone reads. You had 11 carries by someone else, and you got 15 yards. You averaged less than 2 yards a carry. Texas and Penn State are the identical thing. Like what everyone's saying about Penn State, you should be saying about Texas. And both of them are kind of eerily similar of what those two programs are like. Because you think about Texas fires Mac Brown, and they have to go through this whole process of trying to find the next coach for it. And Texas goes into the doldrums. They're awful. And Sarkisian had to come back and take over a program that really needed a lot of fixing. And they've gotten to a really good place from where they started off from. Same thing with Penn State. You have the whole Jerry Sandusky thing that goes down there. Everyone gets fired. Bill O'Brien, and we don't give Bill O'Brien enough credit for being the steady hand on the ship. He could have let that program just completely collapse into itself, but it didn't. He stayed the hand. James Franklin takes over after 2 years of Bill O'Brien and really builds them back up to being considered a national power. And still, Florida doing what they did, UCLA doing what they did so our two main members of Fraudville living in there, I guess they're just renting out the house Missouri occupied last year. So,
well, and you kind of look at back to your point, Texas, the whole philosophy all year should have been you have an offensive line of big guys, but they're inexperienced, and you have a stable guys. Run the football controller clock, let your defense get time where they have to come in, they're energized, they have the rest to be able to just get all three and out, boom, 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 and roll. Now you're trying to put on Arch to win him a Heisman Trophy, trying to pump this whole campaign. Like every week, these Texas supporters and media and out Austin put out some stupid, ridiculous stat about how he completed 52% of his passes on the second down in the third quarter. Who cares?
Right.
You built him up, but he still has to deliver. And there's a great tweet that was put out by Ben Stevens on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. All the tweet was a picture of the Corleones from The Godfather. If you don't see The Godfather, well, go watch it first off. But The left picture was Sonny, then it was Don, then it was Michael, and then it was Fredo. And all he wrote in the tweet was Peyton, Archie, Eli, Arch. And if you put the names of the picture, you knew the story, you knew exactly how it all played out. I died laughing. It's an epic tweet, and it's exactly what it is. Arch is playing like Fredo. He is the traitor. He is the fraud. He is the embarrassment of the family. The three of the others are the ones who are like, dude, hey, not while mama's alive. I don't. What is Texas going to do? Who? And all on top of it, who have they actually beat since they've joined the SEC? A Clemson team in a shootout in the playoff. Arizona State, where they had a miraculous comeback with some potential controversy. Bama was not in the SEC. Bama was when they were still in the Big 12.
Okay, I thought they had that.
No,
that was that was the year before. That's right.
A&M at A&M last year. That's it. I mean, they were gifted a great schedule the first year. They haven't done anything. They haven't beat anybody. Like we're going by name alone. We're going by logo alone. Same thing with Penn State. Who has Penn State beaten in the past couple of years?
Right.
Nobody. You're getting a logo game, and eventually, now with NIL and more and more like the transfer portal, it might suck because I'm a Georgia fan, or you might have logos start missing out. But we've got to start looking at it at the team on the field, not the logo on the screen. Because right now, Penn State and Texas have no business being ranked in the top 25, much less even being anywhere near the playoff conversation. And if an AP voter or a playoff committee member, when that first thing comes out, has them anywhere in there, they should be removed because it's supposed to be an eye thing. We got rid of the BCS to have numbers removed. I'm watching the eye test, and I see terrible football play even when they're winning. Something's got to change. But enough on Texas and enough on Penn State. We can move forward. But the Fraudville is occupied by two schools so far.
Right. And again, I got to go back and give them credit, too, for this. Because I'm going to say, because I've been critical, and I'll be honest where I bring it back. Texas need to take a thing out of Mike Bobo's playbook. What Georgia did to Kentucky this past weekend is, people are going to look at the stat line only and go 42 carries for 183 of 4.4 yards a carry, but they scored 4 touchdowns on the ground. Mm-hmm. Georgia went into a game, and again, you lose a heartbreaker against Alabama. Okay. And again, it kind of is that whole same thing I said about Illinois. You go into another game where do you have a hangover where you're feeling bad about yourself? Oh, we lost this game. Or do you pick yourself back up and hit somebody in the mouth? You have Gunnar Stockton, who we have debated at length of the talent of Gunnar Stockton, but he's a young quarterback. He's playing in his 7th game of his career, 8th game of his career.
Yes,
when they want to put the ball in his hands, what do you remember? Georgia's got a great offensive line with some big bodies, just like Texas does. And what do? You give it Bowens and Frazier, and you just pound people to death on the ground. Those two guys, 22 carries, 104 yards on the ground. Those two guys almost had 5 yards per carry. And that's exactly the model Texas should be doing. Yes, Georgia is running with Gunnar Stockton a bit. Not a bunch. He's not your leading rusher. He's making sure he's a threat. But again, that's the model that Texas should be following.
Agree. You don't have to be sexy to get it done. You just got to win. When you have big games like this, to get back to your point, after a loss, how do you just, reset? And that was, heartbreak's going to come. Similar thing. I want to see what Florida State does next week to kind of layer on resetting. You've lost a heartbreaker in double overtime. You had some turnovers. Your defense didn't play well versus Virginia. You had opportunities versus Miami. If you watch the full game, the opening drive, they're going right down the field, and then they call a timeout, trying to hurry it up and not in play. And that killed momentum. They ended up setting for a field goal, and then the defense just lost the mojo. The offense didn't have the flow. Castellanos was making a couple late throws where both were intercepted. They had a couple penalties to kill drives, and you kind of got out of your own flow. You just try to do too much, try to play it like roller skating. I'm not a skater, but people who roller skate, you put your head over your skates, and you sort of fall down. Be balanced, be paused, be in control, and you can keep the pace of the game. Once you start getting over your skates or over your weight, you start tripping over yourself. Right. That's where, can you reset that element and keep your team under control and move forward? It's going to be very, very important for a lot of these teams who are facing 1 or 2 losses early in the year and how do you keep themselves in the contention. Now, Penn State has, to compare Florida State, Texas, and Penn State, Florida State doesn't have any more ranked teams on their schedule. So that's a trouble spot. It means they have to win out. Penn State has Indiana and they have Ohio State. If they win one of those two, maybe some dumb committee member will think that they've gotten themselves back into it. And then if you look at Texas, they have Georgia coming up. They're going to have A&M is going to be ranked. So they have a chance to sort of get themselves back in the mix and make up for it if they can pull up a big win. But being within your control what you can control and be who you are is a big element.
Yeah. And again, Florida State's going to point at something. The mayor of Fraudville, we told you folks we were going to announce who the mayor of Fraudville is for this season. And they have been living in there since week 3. They have the mansion at the end of Main Street. It's the Clemson Tigers. It's easily the Clemson Tigers. They are the mayors of Fraudville this season. The team, I'm going to tell you, Fresh, who I'm really starting to worry about them just because of how inept they looked at times, is I think LSU could be on their way to be moving to Fraudville.
Yeah, LSU, a tough schedule. They got South Carolina coming in. They're going to have to really wipe out.
They're going to have to show something big.
Or they're going to be on their express train that way because Clemson's win over North Carolina, I don't care if you won that game 3-0. It's really good result for me. North Carolina, hideous. But LSU is in a bad spot. When we talk about playoff dreams, they're supposed to be there. Everyone we all thought, hey, they're a lock for playoffs, ourselves included. All these transfer portal elements, and I think it goes back to the whole point of hitting the portal. Who do you actually have? Are you getting the right guys? Because look at Texas Tech. You can make an argument how they played through competition. No, but they're the best team in the Big 12, and they're beating people down. Our defense, that entire defense is just a rotating door of defensive line. LSU's transfer portal influx haven't really felt the impact. Mm-hmm. The defense hasn't locked people down. The offense hasn't lit people up. Be careful what you wish for in the portal because things have to actually jive and connect. And we're seeing success at Miami, some of the portal hits. We've seen, I'm going to say, mixed results at Florida State. We've seen some great. Castellanos, I think, he's a warrior. But the defensive side, they look great versus Alabama. They had 2 slappies, and they haven't been able to get stops versus Miami or Virginia. And some of those disconnects on that side, like, all right, they have to gel. So the portal is a mixed result, and you've got to know when you're making that offer, the NIL money or that opportunity to come play, you've got to hope that guy buys in to that scheme, into that roster, because when games get messy, are they going to stand up? We talked about this in the preview, and this is across the country. When you dip into the portal, are you getting the right guys who are going to come in there and be able to play for the logo on the helmet and for the team and not just an individual effort? And are going to be able to go through the tough times and show up and help bounce back after a loss or two? We know there's going to be playoff teams with 9-3 or 10-3 if they're losing a conference title game. We're going to have at least 2 of those in the playoff this year at some point. But how do you avoid letting 1 loss become 2 and 2 become 3 and be able to rally and galvanize within a season, within a game? That's where the portal element of not having that guy in there for 3 to 4 years, being truly entrenched in the program and being able to be that logo is a big element.
So, Fresh, let me ask you a couple of teams here. Oklahoma, Red River Rivalry shootout. One of the greatest rivalry games. Take a sip of coffee here.
I think I get what you're going at here.
What is that game going to mean in the grand scheme of college football going into this week?
So, Mateer is most likely not going to play. I think there's even a report that came out yesterday that Mateer's not going to play. So, Michael Hawkins is going to have to take over, run the reins. They scored 44 versus Penn State. I was kind of hoping for a little more efficiency. Obviously, that kind of worries me. If Mateer to Hawkins, we saw Hawkins before, and the offense wasn't fantastic. But this is a chance for Oklahoma, who's undefeated, to effectively end Texas this season.
Oh, it's over.
Well, look,
they win.
If Texas right now 2 losses, you're technically still alive. You have 1 conference loss. You have a 7-point loss on the road to Ohio State. You can consider that respectable. But if Oklahoma goes in there and beats Texas, that's 0-2 in the SEC, and lost to Ohio State, people go, they lost to Oklahoma, they lost to Florida, and lost to Ohio State. No, it's 3 losses. Eventually, you got to win football games, and that would be effectively end the year for Texas. I don't care if they go and beat Georgia. I don't care if they go and beat Texas A&M. You're not going to play for SEC title, and I'm going to have to look back and say, well, you still went to the swamp and looked like trash. Texas has the extreme pressure on Sark and the Longhorn program to buck up, to rise up, and maybe save it, because There's a lot of NL money. And look, being a Georgia fan, I've seen Tyler Atkinson and Justice Terry go there for the money only. They literally have come out and said it. They went for the money only because it was better, not because of the experience, not because of the relationship with the coaching staff. If you're here spending money and you're not delivering on game day, boosters are going to get pissed. This is a big day for Texas to go out there and save their season, because if they lose, Stark's going to have to start answering a lot of questions, because the boosters are going to start calling the president, the AD, and saying, hey, I'm given X amount. Why am I not seeing the result on the field?
Right. All right, Fresh. Finish this sentence for me here. I'm going to ask you a couple of teams. By the end of October, we will know blank about this team. By the end of October, we will know what about Texas Tech.
I think we're going to know if they're one of the top 4 seeds or not. I think they're going to be a playoff team, but I think we're going to know if they're a top 4 seed. Because this year it's not about a conference title, champion to get in. He's just the top 4 teams in the country. And then they have a chance to really go in and just put a foot down and claim that they are a legit top 4, team in the country, top to bottom. That defense is very, very, very lethal.
All right. By the end of October, we'll know what about the Virginia Cavaliers.
We'll know if they were just lucky or if they are truly a team of resurgence and destiny. So they had a couple of defensive scores, just a couple of great plays versus Florida State in that double overtime win. I think they also had caught Florida State looking ahead to Miami a little bit on a Friday night. But then even versus Louisville, they had 2 defensive touchdowns, one of 60 yards and one of 40 yards, and then won the game in overtime. Some of it's luck, some of it's execution, keep playing, but we're going to know if they're truly able to carry that forward and put somebody away and show they're actually a playoff team.
All right. 2 more for you. End of October, we will know what about Ole Miss.
We'll know if they're the best team in the SEC or not. They got to go to Athens. Ooh. And after last year's game in Oxford, Georgia's probably going to be a little pissed off. So that's going to be a tough environment for them. And Georgia might be playing for their lives if they lose to Auburn this week. So you got to come out there and we'll know if they can go handle that environment and get that win, handle some business, they might put themselves in the driver's seat as the best team in the SEC. So
back-to-back weeks. Yeah. Georgia, then to Oklahoma.
So yeah, we'll know about Ole Miss, and Trinidad. I really like that guy. That can play.
Yeah, I do too. All right, last one for you. By the end of October, we'll know what about the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. It's a tough one.
Mental toughness.
Ooh, I like it.
And the reason why I say that is because they have a path through the ACC title game, and there's not much in their way. You can't get ahead of yourself. You can't start reading too much clippings. That's kind of one thing that if you run up like the Hurricanes, your schedule looks so easy the rest of the season compared to what you've been through. So Georgia Tech in the same boat. Just mind your own business. Go out there, execute, be tough, win the football game, punch your ticket to Charlotte, and then let the fates sort of settle where they are. You still obviously have to play Georgia at the end of the year, but if you go through and take care of your ACC schedule, you're going to be in a great spot to be a playoff team. But you have to be able to just understand and be mature about it and not say, well, it's a gift. We got ourselves taken care of. We're going to be fine. You've got to just embody your coach to the fullest extent, one game at a time, one play at a time.
All right. Fresh, I love it. I can't wait for this month because I think everything is going to come to knowledge here. And then when we get into the end of October, right around Halloween weekend, we're going to kind of get our very first look of who are legit contenders, because I still don't think we know. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 teams that we can say, okay, that team definitely has the talent to win a national title, but I still don't think we truly know who the real contenders are.
Well, I think there's 3 elite football teams at this point as we close October. So the October 5th, Ohio State, Oregon, and Miami. But then you're going to have some people say, well, who has Ohio State beat? They beat a bad Texas team week 1 by a touchdown. They still won it, and they've blown everybody else out. You got to say, oh, well, but Oregon, their only big win was in overtime at Penn State, who has shown that they're garbage and they haven't beat anybody. But you know what? They went to a hostile environment, a whiteout, a night game. They handled business. They did it. They dominated. We'll know more about Oregon after the play in the end, but I think they've shown their toughness on both sides of the ball to be a very good football team. And then Miami has they've handled everything. They've played a ton of ranked teams. They haven't left the state of Florida, but they've done it in different fashions. They've had to handle a lot of emotional efforts, and they've gotten it done. So they're pretty solid. That fourth team, I think Texas Tech is close, showing they're an elite football team. I want to see more from their offense as we go forward, but their defense is legit.
What about Alabama?
Alabama has a resiliency.
They do.
They're right there on the cusp.
Boots to Vandy.
Well, it was a tie game. It was late. They put them away late because that game was a 20-14 game. 2 Vanderbilt turnovers in the red zone. The last one, Vanderbilt's going with 12 minutes to go to take a lead or even get within a point. Pavia, I think emotions got too much of him. Had 2 turnovers inside the 15, killed it. And then Alabama poured it on late with a death march to just end the ball game. Main covered the spread, ironically, hint, hint, if you're thinking about that kind of thing. So it was closer than it was, but that shows the toughness that Alabama has, is that they knew it was going to be a scrap. They fought and they clawed. Vanderbilt gave them a couple punches, and they were able to get through 2 emotionally charged ball games in back-to-back weeks, going to Athens, winning that ball game 24-21, not scoring in the second half at all. Their defense locking it down. And then this week, it was 14-all at halftime. The final in the ball game was 30-14. Alabama's defense shut out Vanderbilt second half and got off the field and made things happen. That shows the defense of their one back is improved. The guys are playing at a higher level, and they have a thought process about it. It's like, we're not going to win games 56-0, but we're going to be a tough football team that's going to come out there and battle. So if they can keep that going, they got to go. Missouri this week, we're going to find out if Missouri's going to join the Fraudville population or if they're going to show up and show they've actually got some talent. But Bama has done a lot, and Ty Simpson is showing. I'm going to say right now, probably he should have been maybe he needed to wait a little bit longer in his career. Jalen Milroe was able to use his legs and maybe help that team more with the offensive line that had issues, but Simpson at the right time is the right quarterback for this program.
Agreed. I'm very, very impressed. Fresh, this is going to be great. I cannot wait for week 7. Week 7 is stacked, everyone. Like, this is one of the most loaded weekends of college football. It is going to be a blast. I seriously cannot wait for these games.
I mean, we're going to know a ton about everybody across the country. I don't know if we're going to have a better idea on conference championship races, but we're going to know about who is a contender with all these top 25 matchups coming away.
Yeah. All right, folks, you've been listening to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're part of Spinnable Sports, so make sure you go to spinnablesports.com. Like, subscribe, wherever you get your podcast from. Hit that notification bell. Get notified every single time we drop a new episode. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. And make sure you interact with us on social media, on the X, whatever else you guys do. We'll engage with you. We enjoy those things. And it's on to week 7 here, Fresh.
College football keeps delivering every single week. Lots of excitement, lots of entertainment, lots of energy. Hit us up, spinnablesports.com. Subscribe to Spinnable Sports YouTube channel. Spread the word. Help build us up. Keep hitting us up on episodes as we come forward. We can't wait to bring the week 7 preview to you here really shortly. And with that, we'll talk to y'all later.